valor.
The Great Viking War. Welcome to one of the most brutal and legendary wars in European history, the Viking Wars. More than 1,000 years ago, terrifying warriors from Scandinavia began attacking kingdoms across Europe. These warriors were known as the Vikings. The Vikings came from the lands we now call Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. They were famous for their long ships, fearless fighting skills, and brutal raids. Across Europe, people feared the sound of Viking ships arriving from the sea. The Vikings were not only warriors, they were also sailors, explorers, traders, and settlers. But during the early Viking Age, many kingdoms saw them as ruthless invaders. Everything began in the late 8th century. One of the first famous Viking attacks happened in the year 793, when Viking warriors attacked a Christian monastery at Lindisfarne in England. The attack shocked Europe. The monastery was peaceful and unprotected. Viking warriors stormed the island suddenly, burning buildings and taking treasures made from gold and silver. For many people, this attack marked the beginning of the Viking Age. Soon, Viking raids spread everywhere. They attacked England, Scotland, Ireland, France, and even parts of Russia. Entire villages were destroyed. Kings struggled to defend their lands from the fast-moving Viking armies. The Vikings became masters of fear. Their longships allowed them to travel quickly across rivers and oceans. They could appear without warning, attack suddenly, and disappear before armies arrived. As years passed, Viking raids became even larger. Instead of small groups, massive Viking armies began invading entire kingdoms. One of the most dangerous Viking forces was known as the Great Heathen Army. This enormous Viking army arrived in England during the 9th century. Their goal was not simply to raid villages anymore. They wanted conquest. The Viking army captured city after city. Kingdoms across England began falling one after another. This time, England was divided into several smaller kingdoms. Many kings were defeated, but one leader would rise against the Vikings. His name was Alfred the Great. Alfred was the King of Wessex, one of the last English kingdoms still resisting Viking control. Unlike many rulers before him, Alfred understood the Viking threat completely. He knew the Vikings were powerful fighters, fast attackers, and skilled strategists. First, Alfred suffered several defeats. The Viking army pushed deep into his kingdom. Many people believed England would soon fall forever, but Alfred refused to surrender. During the cold winter months, he secretly rebuilt his army. He trained soldiers harder than before and created stronger defenses throughout his kingdom. He also built a navy to fight the Vikings at sea. This was revolutionary. For the first time, English forces could challenge Viking ships directly. Finally, in the year 878, Alfred confronted the Viking leader Guthrum at the Battle of Edington. The battle was fierce and bloody. Viking warriors charged fearlessly into combat with axes and swords. English soldiers formed defensive walls with shields and spears. For hours, the battle raged across the battlefield, but Alfred's forces held strong. Eventually, the Vikings were defeated. Guthrum surrendered to Alfred, and a peace agreement was signed. This victory saved much of England from total Viking conquest. Alfred later became known as Alfred the Great, one of the most respected kings in English history. However, Viking power did not disappear completely. For many years, Viking settlements continued across northern England and Scotland. In fact, Vikings influenced language, culture, and trade throughout Europe. Many English words used today actually come from Old Norse, the Viking language. Meanwhile, Viking explorers sailed even farther. One famous Viking explorer was Eric the Red, who discovered Greenland. His son, Leif Erikson, later became one of the first Europeans to reach North America centuries before Christopher Columbus. The Vikings were not only destroyers, they were also explorers who changed world history. But the age of Viking warfare slowly began to decline. As European kingdoms became stronger and more organized, Viking invasions became more difficult. Many Vikings settled permanently in Europe and eventually adopted Christianity. Over time,
Valor.